What's up everybody, D-Man back. Welcome to a brand new video, and today we're going to be doing another Godzilla X Kong The New Empire discussion video. This one is kind of a part 2 to the previous Godzilla X Kong video I made where I talked about the new footage. I just feel like I have to do a little bit of a rant about this movie. I really want to talk about some stuff that's been getting on my nerves. So in the last video, I discussed how there's like this weird war within the fan base where some people are hyper negative about Godzilla X Kong The New Empire, probably because they can capitalize on it, and some people are hyper defensive over it. And I feel like a lot of that stems from the fact that Godzilla fans notoriously are hyper defensive of the franchise, probably due to the fact that it's often not taken very seriously, or they're picked on for it or whatever, and so they feel the need to become incredibly defensive over the films. That'd be my guess. When Godzilla King of the Monsters came out and some people didn't like it, I remember some reviewers got death threats, they got really ripped into. The first people who gave it negative reviews on Rotten Tomatoes got death threats. The same thing happened with Godzilla -1. Godzilla fans are notoriously hyper defensive over the property, and it's why we have such a bad reputation. And you're seeing the same thing now happen with Godzilla X Kong The New Empire, where people don't even feel comfortable talking about it. I think it's really childish. This is going to be a discussion that's going to get those people a little annoyed, because we're going to be discussing some of the pros and cons with the new Empire. And if you don't want to hear about some of the cons, then maybe don't stick around for the discussion. I love Godzilla, obviously. I love Kong, but I want to acknowledge that it's really difficult for me to talk about this new movie because there's a few things that are making it really tricky. The negativity in the fan base, not only dealing with some people who just don't want to see the movie and are being very negative about the movie, but also people being hyper defensive over the movie, it just makes it really not fun to discuss. I know a lot of people who don't discuss this movie because of the toxic culture around it. As far as the film itself, I feel like there are valid critiques that can be aired against the film that people don't want to hear about. For instance, in the newest 2 teasers we got for the film, the international trailers, the Godzilla in Rome shot, the perspective is really weird. Godzilla's eyes are hyper focused, whereas the Colosseum is weirdly out of focus. It doesn't look like a real camera angle. It looks like a CG shot. The lighting is a little strange. There are some fantastic details though, like the way the light and the shadow moves across Godzilla's chest. That's incredible. Then the shot of Kong in the Hollow Earth, it looks mostly good, but there's no real sense of scale at all. Kong looks like he could just as well be 6 feet tall as he is 6,000 feet tall. We have no idea what we're looking at because the Hollow Earth, the setting, it's so foreign to us that it's really impossible to wrap our heads around what we're seeing. And then Kong's chin and beard clip clear through his chest. It's really clunky, and people don't want to acknowledge that, or people want to over acknowledge that. I don't really care. I'm mostly just wanting to talk about why that is, and I'm also wanting to talk about why it is so difficult to even discuss this movie in the first place, given just the lackluster culture around it. Godzilla -1 had this really crazy spoiler culture where, oh my god, people lost their minds when I saw the movie early because they were so worried that I was gonna spoil it, and then people freaked out when I posted a thumbnail with Godzilla with blue atomic breath, as if blue has ever been a spoiler. And so I kind of want to talk about the weird shift that has happened with this new film. And this gets into a different discussion about the CGI overall, where the CGI overall are not as good as Godzilla vs. Kong, or even in my opinion, King of the Monsters. A lot of the visuals I think have a certain flatness to them or have some weird animation to them. I don't blame Godzilla X Kong. Godzilla X Kong is rumored to have over a $200 million budget. However, keep in mind, those rumors are not coming from very reliable sources at the moment, so let's wait for confirmation on that before we jump to conclusions. And I've already seen people making the argument that -1 only had a $10 million budget, it only had 35 VFX artists, and it looks so much better. They had way less CGI to do. There's way less VFX shots in Godzilla -1, and they had way longer to do them. In Godzilla -1, they started the VFX process in April of 2022, and they did a little over 100 VFX shots, if I'm not mistaken. For Godzilla X Kong, pretty much every single shot in the entire movie is going to have to be a VFX shot, whether they're in the Hollow Earth, that's a VFX thing, or whether it's the monsters themselves. And this is ultimately the culmination of, when you want more monster screen time, the VFX are going to start to suffer. Godzilla -1, it benefits from the fact that they had more time to work on the movie, way less VFX to go on. Yes, while one of these yielded Oscar-nominated results, it's not fair to compare the VFX from one movie to the next, I don't think, because we are in a completely different ballpark here. Godzilla -1 got to tell a story, and Godzilla X Kong The New Empire is basically forced to be non-stop over-the-top action just as a result of that's what people have been demanding from the MonsterVerse for 10 full years now. And so now they're giving people what they want, and people aren't happy with it because the VFX start to suffer. There's a scale of quality to screen time here, and when we slide the screen time up, the quality gets dragged with it, and the quality gets pushed down lower. The less VFX, the better they're gonna look. It blows my mind that people don't wrap their heads around that a lot of the time. So when people demand constant monster screen time, constant monster action, we don't need the humans. We're not here for the humans, we're here for the monsters. This is what happens. The VFX start to slip, and it's your fault. I don't blame the filmmakers, I don't blame the VFX artists. Clearly, it needs more time to cook. They probably should release it at the end of this year. They clearly could use the time. I blame the people who have not understood what their criticisms of the movie are before they launch them against the films. Your problem isn't the human screen time. Your problem is how the humans are used. I've also seen a lot of cope going around in the fan base where people are saying like, oh man, this is just a trailer. It's gonna look so much better in the movie. If you do comparisons the way I did from King of the Monsters trailers to King of the Monsters film, the VFX changed probably like about 10%. Sometimes things got brighter, sometimes things got changed in color, sometimes Godzilla's eyes lit up even more this time. A lot of the King of the Monsters changes came down to color grading, and ultimately the CGI in the animation was pretty much the same with some maybe color differences, like the lightning changing from yellow to blue. As far as Godzilla vs. Kong goes, the trailer to the film, it was 1-to-1. It was the same thing. Godzilla 2014 is completely unfair because they made new shots for the trailers that weren't in the films, and then Kong Skull Island, it's the same CGI in the film as it is in the trailer. So when I see people saying that the CG is going to become dramatically better, how is it going to become dramatically better? They just pushed the release date up by a couple weeks. If it was going to become better, they would have pushed it back. They would have delayed the movie to give more time to the VFX artists that desperately need more time to work on these films. And for people who are worried about like, oh, Godzilla X Kong has a $200 million budget, we're never going to make that back. Well, let's just say it does for a second. Let's just say the movie does have a $200 million budget. If the movie has a $200 million budget, I'm going to say it's probably not going to make all of that back at the box office because you have to also account for marketing, which tends to double your budget. So it could be anywhere up to $400 million spent on the movie, which means unless the movie breaks 400 plus million, it's not going to make a ton of profit. Okay, so let's just say that's the case. Playmates alone is going to keep this franchise alive. 2020 and 2021, Playmates Godzilla vs. Kong line did incredibly well and was Playmates' biggest brand. When you check Playmates reports at the end of each year, those were the two big ones. Now in 2022, there was an interesting report where they noted that Godzilla vs. Kong is not selling the way it used to, but they were hopeful that was going to change, and it totally has. Let me tell you exactly why Godzilla is not going anywhere. Right here. This right here is why the MonsterVerse isn't going anywhere. The big ones that I unbox and review, the giant Godzilla and Kong, I could buy a Godzilla X Kong, the new Empire movie ticket for $12. Now this thing is $30. This thing's worth multiple trips to Godzilla vs. Kong. Every single one of these smaller toys is like $12. That's worth a movie ticket right there, and there's a whole shelf of them and I'm just one guy. That giant RC Godzilla for the new Empire, that thing is so expensive. I've seen that thing going for over $100 at retail stores, which by the way, if you see it for that expensive, don't buy. It's not worth that much money, was it? I don't think I spent that much on it. Oh my gosh, that accounts for so many movie tickets. And now I know not all of that goes to Warner Bros, but hey, it doesn't always go to Warner Bros either because theater companies take a cut as well. The toy sales alone are gonna keep the MonsterVerse around. That is why the MonsterVerse is gonna live on. Same way that like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is not profitable in the theaters. Same way that like Transformers isn't profitable in the theaters these days, but they still keep making them because the toys sell. So if you're worried that the MonsterVerse is going anywhere, we've got you covered. It's not going anywhere. As long as weirdos like myself will throw all of their money away on plastic, you're gonna be fine. Also, the final part of this video that I just wanted to talk about is it's really impossible for me to speculate on Godzilla X Kong these days. About the only thing I don't know that happens in the movie is pretty much anything to do with the human cast. I don't really know what happens to them. Anytime I've tried to engage in a MonsterVerse discussion, often even outside of the MonsterVerse, talking about -1, people are casually dropping spoilers for the new Empire like it means nothing. Giant channels with over 100,000 subscribers are casually putting big spoilers in their thumbnails because they have no integrity and because they love your AdSense. That's why they do it, and it ruins the experience for the rest of us. You know, I've seen a lot of people like up in arms about the fact that I've mentioned SHIMO. SHIMO, I've got the toy of. The toy is in stores. It would be insane for me to not acknowledge the fact that this toy exists, and here's what blows my mind about it. SHIMO isn't a spoiler. We have no idea what SHIMO is. It's a brand new thing. We've never seen it before. You've never seen it. I've never seen it. We don't know what SHIMO is. The only reason you might possibly think SHIMO is a spoiler is because you know the role that SHIMO plays in the film. If you didn't, it wouldn't be a spoiler. In fact, I'll take it a step further. Every single one of us shouldn't be aware that SHIMO has ice powers. All we should really be aware of is that SHIMO's like a bluish dragon looking thing, and the thing that should have tipped us off was the Playmates toy saying it has like a frostbite or whatever that power is called. Then we should have been like, oh, maybe it's not like a white dragon with crystal powers, maybe it's a ice dragon. That should have been the tipping point. But everybody already knew what SHIMO was for like a year now, because everybody just casually spoils the new Empire, and I refuse to partake in that. So it's impossible for me to sit here and go, I wonder what Godzilla's doing in Rome, because when I speculated about what might be happening in Rome, you guys just simply spoiled it, because so many people just don't care, and it's ruined the experience for me. It's ruined the experience for people who like to engage in the speculative discussions, because I'm not gonna have those anymore, and it's got me at the point where I'm like, I don't even want to talk about this movie. It's gonna come out, I'll watch it, and then that'll be that. I basically feel like I know everything, and maybe there's some surprises to be seen, and I'll be excited if I see those, but man, at this point, so many of us don't have much to look forward to because we know everything. So anyways, there's your discussion on the new Empire. There's a reason I don't talk a lot about the new Empire, and it's not because I don't want to watch the movie. It's because I don't have much to say about it, because I can't say much, because everybody spoils everything. There's no point in having discussions on a movie when all that the discussion is going to yield is people spoiling what happens. Anyways, the footage looks cool enough. While they're making some choices I wouldn't have gone with, like giving Kong the Beast Glove, I just don't think he needs it. While some of the animation is a little clunky, overall pretty cool, and I like that they're doing new stuff. I like that Godzilla's going new places. I like that they're doing new things with the IPs. It's not just a rehash of what we've seen before. Minus One, I've said in a lot of videos, the reason that was so awesome is because they focused on perfecting their craft rather than innovating, and that's fine that Godzilla X Kong is trying to innovate and do new things. That's exciting because it's going to be totally new and fresh and different from Minus One, and I'm all for that. There's that discussion for you guys. Alright, I hope you enjoyed. I want to give a huge thank you to my patrons over on Patreon. If you want to support the Patreon, you can use the link in the description below. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I will see you guys next time for the next one. D-Man out.